My name is Meyer-Eltz. For 20 years I've been working as a freelance software developer in my own company T2T Soft. T2T stands for text-to-text conversion. The conversion of Delphi code to C++ is a sophisticated example of such a conversion, and in recent years I've specialized in this topic with the development of the Delphi to CPP program. The conversions carried out for this presentation were done with the Delphi to CB program, which is a spin-off of the more extensive Delphi to CPP. While the Delphi to CPP program can convert Delphi code into C++ code for various C++ compilers, the cheaper Delphi to CB only produces code for the C++ builder. This is the English version of the first part of a talk I originally gave at the German Code Rage 2021. Please excuse some German language text snippets which might be shown. The German version used RedStudio 10.4 Sydney. For this presentation now the code has been updated to RedStudio 11 Alexandria. The original talk has been broken down now into 3 parts and has been slightly expanded. The first part presents the conversion of a simple Delphi VCL project reusing installed SynEdit components. The second part will discuss some special problems at the conversion of Delphi code to C++, and the final third part presents the conversion of a more complex VCL application using the code of the SynEdit components which had been translated to C++. The SynEdit components are widespread free components for an editor with syntax highlighting. They are hosted at GitHub at the address shown here. If you pick up the SynEdit components via Get:it in the C++ builder Alexandria, you will find the associated code in the user home documents directory. The original Delphi code is arranged in the directories demos, source and syngen. The converted code is also hosted on GitHub and accordingly arranged. On the screen, the folders of the Delphi code and the C++ code are presented together to make the relations clear. The demos folder contains 4 subdirectories with the various demos projects. This folder is duplicated and 2 versions of the C++ demos are created directly in these folders. One time using the installed Delphi components and one time without them. However, the C++ code for the SynEdit components and the syngen utility program for creating new highlighters was created in new directories parallel to the original Delphi code. There is a directory in each case containing the unchanged C++ code as it was generated by Delphi to CB, and a second directory with a manually corrected version of this code, so corresponding files can be compared easily. Users of the C++ builder without a Delphi license face a problem when they deal with the SynEdit components for the first time. Although there are 4 demo projects for these components, they can only be compiled with a Delphi compiler. The demo code has now been converted with Delphi to CB for the C++ builder, but Delphi to CB only converts Delphi code, not Delphi projects. In the following, it will now be demonstrated how C++ builder projects are created from the C++ code. Since the C++ builder is based on the Delphi compiler, and both together are using Delphi libraries, the result of the conversion only requires little manual post-processing. In the first example that I'm about to present, the CompletionProposal demo, also the installed SynEdit components are reused. The CompletionProposal demo was selected because the converted code does not require any post-processing. At first, it is just a matter of showing how a corresponding C++ builder form application can be generated from a Delphi VCL form application by reusing the existing form. Here you see the graphical user interface of Delphi 2CB. In the Explorer, the project group of CompletionProposal is seen. It consists of 2 demos, each of which contains only one form file. Both are equally easy to translate. Therefore, I just open the first demo. This is a typical form file with a tform class, which initially has a published section, and in the implementation part you can see what happens in the various event handlers. Delphi 2CB is not a click-and-run program. The trick is to find the right settings. For this demonstration, I load the settings that I have already prepared. I just like to point out the set conditions, like MS Windows, Unicode, Win32 and so on. Delphi 2CB works much like a compiler. Just as a compiler translates source code into machine language, Delphi 2CB translates Delphi code into the C++ language. Just as a compiler first evaluates the conditions and can therefore only compile the code for a specific set of conditions, also Delphi 2CB can only compile the code for a specific set of conditions. Here you see the conditions that I've chosen for this project. To demonstrate the pre-processing, I've prepared a short section of code that contains the same uses clause as in the original code, only this time as the else branch of a non-fulfilled condition. Because the identifier Unix is not defined, you will see that the inserted condition will disappear. I let the file translate once in the Delphi 2CB interface. In the first phase, the pre-processing of the code takes place exactly according to the set definitions. That is, the code is reduced to the defined paths. In the upper part of the progress bar, you see the progress of the individual files included. Initially, only the interface sections are scanned here. The lower part of the progress bar shows the overall progress of the processing of the file loaded in the editor. In the second phase, the code is then parsed. That is, it is broken down into its elements according to the Delphi grammar, from which a syntax tree is then generated at the same time. The type information required for the translation is then available in this syntax tree. There will be also a third phase, a quick run through the generated syntax tree that cannot be seen here. In the last phase, the generated syntax tree is then output as C++ code. In the background you can see a log tree with the light blue boxes. The color blue means that everything is fine. In the case of an error, the boxes would be red. For example, if included files cannot be found or if there are syntax errors. Everything is fine here. Here you can save newly found spellings. I skipped that. The preprocessed code is now in the original editor on the left. The change made at the beginning has been removed because Unix is not defined. The generated C++ header is now displayed in the editor field at the top right, and the generated source code is shown in the editor field at the bottom right. You can see, for example, that the fields in the beginning of the form class are now preceded by the keyword published. This is very important, otherwise serious errors would occur when trying to reuse the Delphi form file. In the source code, for example, you can see the with statement. There are no such with statements in C++. Therefore, a temporary variable of the with type is defined here. Here it is a pointer, and therefore an arrow is used as access operator. I saved the generated files in the directory in which the path file is also located. First the header file, then the C++ file. Here you can see all the files that we have together in one directory. We have created the C++ code for the main form, but we don't yet have a C++ application. Delphi to CB converts Delphi code files, but it does not create C++ builder projects. These have to be generated manually. The aim is to reuse the existing form file. The following table shows in general which files we have to deal with. In our example we have different names but the same relationship. The left column shows the files that Delphi creates by default for a VCL form application. In the middle column you can see the files that Delphi to CB can generate from them. We did not create the file project1cpp, but it would be possible. The C++ builder can do that better, so I'll leave it at that. In the right column you can see the files that are generated by a new C++ builder form application. At the moment we have the situation that we have the files of the left and middle column together in one directory. If you would create a new C++ builder application in the same directory, then there would be conflicts. First, the project1cpp could be overwritten, which, as I said, would not be harmful. However, unit1h and unit1cpp, which we have just created, would also be overwritten. The optimal approach would have been to create the framework of the C++ builder project before converting the Delphi code, so that the C++ file of the main form generated by the C++ builder would then be overwritten by those generated from the Delphi file. In practice, however, it is easier to have all files available first, as is the case here. I wrote a small tool for this case. It does some backup and copy actions so that you can create the project even if all the code already exists. The tool is called Main Form Exchange, and it is free. In the memo field above, all the steps to be taken are described again. I open the main form of the application. The name of the form appears in the Edit field at the top right. This is now the standard name, but it could also be a different one, and the name of the C++ file for the form appears at the field below. Now I click on the Rename button. As a result, some files are renamed in such a way that there will be nothing be overwritten when the C++ Builder project is created. I am creating a new VCL form application. Now I have to make sure that the name of the form really matches the name that is displayed here in the tool, which is the case here. Then I copy the name of the C++ file to the clipboard, and I save the new project in the same directory in which we have already started. I chose the original Delphi name as the project name, which is not absolutely necessary, but more systematic. I'm closing the project as a precaution, which wouldn't be necessary, but it seems to be safer to me. Now I go back to my tool and undo the renaming. While doing so, I let the background show what is happening. The temporary files of the C++ Builder project are also copied here. These are then cleaned up at the last step. Now I open the C++ Builder project again, and we now have the correct form file along with the correct code files. But one step is still missing. You have to add an auxiliary code that you need for all converted projects. You need at least this D2C system file. The whole thing can now be compiled. I start the program, and voila, the demo runs. We can also try whether it works. I enter the name of a class and a dot, and then I get suggestions for the completion. Restoring a Delphi project as a C++ Builder project using the main form exchange tool can be incomplete if other changes to the main project file were made after its first creation. Such changes can be made either by the Red Studio or manually. It is therefore advisable to make a text comparison between the newly generated main project file and the one which had been generated by Delphi to CB. I demonstrate this using the example of the SynGen application which has been originally created in the same way as the SynCompletion project presented before. In addition, however, the other translated code files have been added here to the project and corrections were made so that they compile. I open the main SynGen file in the IDE. Here is the entry point where the application starts, and you can see the line of code application create form which the IDE had generated for the creation of the main form. This code shall be compared with the code produced by Delphi to CB. There are two directories for SynGen C++ code. SynGen CPP raw contains the unchanged code as it was automatically generated by Delphi to CB, and in SynGen CPP run is the corrected code. If we now compare these directories with each other and look at the content of SynGen CPP, we can see that in the code coming from the translation there are two calls: application create form. This is a change made by the IDE. If you open the project options and go to the Forms sections under Application, the forms to be automatically generated by the application are displayed in the table on the left, and the forms that are also available are displayed in the right of the table. If the form on the right is moved to the left side, after saving the options and closing the options dialog, you can see that the code has been changed automatically. Of course, you have to make sure that the same forms are automatically generated in the C++ Builder application as in the original Delphi application. We save this change and go back to the text comparison. There is still a difference in the start code. I leave the additional line generated by C++ Builder, but I take over the line in which the title of the application is set. I insert it in the opened file directly. When I let compile the application now and start it, it needs a grammar file by which it generates a basic skeleton of the highlighter source. This was the first part of the talk about converting Delphi projects to C++ Builder projects using the example of a simple demo program. In the next part, we continue with the explanation of some problems with the conversion of the Delphi code of the SynEdit components themselves.